Hi, happy campers. It's Sister Mac, your camp director. I am so excited for this week. I know we can't get together as a group of young women in physical life, but this is the next best thing. This is a COVID camp, right? I am so excited. This week is going to be filled with adventure, creativity, and a little bit of inspiration. I hope you can become closer to your Heavenly Father through this process and closer to us as young women and as a presidency. So every day you will receive a camp kit delivered to your house from 9 to 10 a.m. In each kit, every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you will get an activity, a little bit of inspiration, and a special gift for you that day. In the inspiration, you will receive something that has to go along with this book. This book is called Born to Change the World by Brad Wilcox, and it goes along with our theme this year, which is You Were Born for a Time Such as This, from the story of Esther, which was inspiration by our leader, Sister Zin. She came up with this theme after last year's camp, and it just is crazy enough that it just works out so well with our COVID camp. So we just love Sister Zin, and I'm so excited that she came up with this theme and that we're going with it, and we are just rocking this coronavirus camp, this COVID camp like nobody else. So every day you will get that camp kit, and then you will click on the link to know how to do your activity, and also gets a little bit of inspiration that way. Every night at 7 p.m. we will each log on to a Zoom meeting where you will be able to show off your activity. You can answer any questions from the inspirational message, and best part, we can do some singing, some girls camp song singing. I know you guys you'll miss that, so we'll be able to get together and recap every night and just be connected as friends and as a young women. So I am so excited, you guys. I can't wait for this week. Also, these shirts might fit a little bit small, so let me know if you need a different size. I love you so much, you guys. See you. Okay, bye. Well, hello, happy campers. My dog's just freaked out. Welcome to Girls Camp Day 1. I'm so excited that you have tuned in. But today you will have received your camp t-shirt. Like I said, make sure let me know if it doesn't fit. You'll also have received this cool book from Brad Wilcox, Born to Change the World. They'll be using this all week this week. And you will have received your little gift. Congratulations, you got a gift. And also your activity. So the activity this day is one that you will have. It's a camp favorite. Friendship bracelets. Who doesn't love friendship bracelets? I know last year we loved them. So we wanted to bring them back and give you all of the stuff to be able to create all of your bracelets. This year, instead of having your camp friends with you, you'll have your family members next to you. So if you have sisters, that's a plus because you'll be able to put it in their hair. Remember we did them in the hair last year? So tonight at the Zoom meeting, I want to see friendship bracelets or friendship hair things. I want to see them on your wrists. You'll also be able to click on these links to view different types of friendship bracelets and how to do different types, to different ties and everything. Also, so you'll get that along with that cardboard that's in your kit. So the cardboard is so that you can clip on the friendship bracelet and start braiding, okay? So, and then also Sister Zin has a special inspirational message that goes along with this, and I can't wait to see you guys at 7 p.m. tonight. So make sure to log on at 7 p.m. Okay, you guys, happy camping!
Hello, ladies, my girls, how are you? We, in the Young Women's Leadership Presidency Girls Camp stuff, we've been working really hard behind the scenes to give you guys a really great experience in the confines with which we find ourselves. And those of you who were at Girls Camp last year, remember when Sammy was giving her devotional, she was talking about Esther. And Esther was under great stress, and there was a lot depending on her faith. And her uncle, he was her uncle, said to her, well, she was very nervous about what was required of her. He said, in essence, I'm not quoting, You were born for a time such as this. And when Sammy was teaching that lesson, I was really touched by it, and felt like that was something to pursue in planning and organizing this year's lesson. And then if you remember, President Nelson, our prophet, has said that the gathering of Israel is the most important thing happening in the world today. And somehow those two have come together for us, and we are going to spend time during our virtual Girls Camp studying the gathering of Israel and what that means. And this is Old Testament. This goes back to the beginning. We're talking Genesis, the beginning of stuff, and Old Testament. I want you to keep in mind, Old Testament is like, this is how I've heard it described. It's like a foreign country. They do things differently. Hank Smith said that. And so, having lived in a foreign country, I know that feeling of like, what? That doesn't make sense to me. So a lot of this stuff might not make sense to you. It might even be a little uncomfortable. And that's okay. The lesson still stands. And we're like I said, we're working within the confines of quarantine stuff. And we're also going to work in the confines of cultural Old Testament times. So we're going to start. You all got this book. Sorry, it's backwards. Born to Change the World, Your Part in the Gathering of Israel. So we're going to use this book for a lot of the information, and I'm using, of course, the Old Testament. I've got my scriptures. I went on the church website. So let's just get started. Abraham. Abraham was a prophet in the Old Testament. He's talked about in Genesis, starting, I think, around like chapter 12 or 13. So we're going back to the very beginning. He was a prophet, and he was, surprise, over his lifetime asked to leave and go dwell in a tent and build an altar and do these different things, which should sound very familiar to us if you guys can remember Lehi and his family. So he was a prophet, and the Lord made a covenant with Abraham. I'm going to give you guys this. This is straight off the church website. The Abrahamic, so he made covenants with Abraham, just like we make covenants with the Lord when we're baptized, when we go to the temple to get our endowments, when we go to the temple to be sealed, we make covenants with the Lord. And Abraham made covenants with the Lord. And among those covenants, well, let me just read this. The Abrahamic covenant. Abraham made covenants with God when he received the gospel, when he was ordained a high priest, and when he entered into celestial marriage. In these covenants, God promised great blessings to Abraham and his family. These blessings, which extend to all of Abraham's seed, are called the Abrahamic covenant. So Abraham's seed are all his descendants. Among the promises made to Abraham are his posterity would be numerous. That's important because starting in Genesis chapter 17, Abraham is 99 and his wife is 89, and they have no children. And so that's pretty interesting. His posterity would be numerous. His seed, his descendants, would receive the gospel and bear the priesthood. And through the ministry, so through the missionary work of his seed, all the families on the earth would be blessed, even with the blessings of the gospel, which are the blessings of salvation, even of life eternal. And we can receive all the blessings of the Abrahamic covenant, even if we're not literal descendants of Abraham, by obeying the laws and ordinances of the gospel. So essentially, this is for everybody, not just like when Brian and I die and there's an inheritance of something, it will primarily go to our children. This Abrahamic covenant applies to Abraham's children, but it's extended beyond that to all of us who obey the gospel. We're all considered part of Abraham's seed. So that's Abraham. So if you know, the names may be familiar to you, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So this is Abraham. This is the guy. So like I said, in Genesis chapter 17, he's 99. His wife's 89. Their names have been changed because the Lord often changes names. His name was Abram, and the Lord changed it to Abraham. And his wife was Sarai. I think I'm saying that right. Sarai. And it was changed to Sarah. This is, Abraham's name is changed in verse 5 of chapter 17, and Sarai's is changed to Sarah in verse 15. A name change, getting a new name, is often associated in the scriptures with covenant making and promised blessings. Jacob, So he's the grandson, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. His name's also changed to Israel. So when we talk about the tribes of Israel, you're talking about the descendants of Jacob. You know, Jacob is Israel. We also know Israel as a country. We know as a nationality, but Jacob's name was literally changed to Israel. So we've got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham they do have a child, Isaac. He's the one, if you know the story, again, it starts to, for me, it's kind of an uncomfortable story because I don't understand the cultural stuff, but there's symbolism in there to be cultivated for sure. If you know the story of Abraham, where he had to put his son on the altar and he was told to sacrifice him, and at the last minute an angel came and spared Isaac, said, tells Abraham, you don't have to do this. We're talking about that guy. That's Abraham. Then there's Isaac, and he has Jacob. So if you guys know Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, if you know, I think Brian's coming. So because I'm doing this, I'm making Brian, Brothers In, cook dinner. He's been in like 4 times asking questions. So I locked the door. He can unlock a door. So if you see him, he's in sweats and a Batman t-shirt, which is kind of funny because you've probably never seen him in that. But I locked the door. But again, we all know who I'm dealing with here. That door could be open in 2 seconds. So we're going to, back to our story. We are going to be talking about, let's skip, so that's the Abrahamic covenant. We're going to skip down to Jacob. So that's Abraham's grandson, whose name's changed to Israel. So this is on page 17 of your book. But I'm gonna probably make a photocopy and give to you guys because I think this would be super helpful if you put this in your scriptures. So we have Jacob, who, and you might know the story of Jacob. He wants to marry Rachel. And he wants to marry Rachel. He loves her. And he's told by Rachel's father, work for me for 7 years and you can marry Rachel. Now remember, Old Testament's like a foreign country. They do things differently. He works for 7 years. He goes to marry her. She's veiled and covered. And culturally at the time, the younger sister didn't marry off before the older sister. And some of this stuff is stuck around. If you guys know Pride and Prejudice and this kind of stuff, there's some of these holdovers, right? Girls don't inherit things. It goes to the sons, that kind of stuff. So when Jacob actually marries who he thinks is Rachel, he's marrying Leah, the older daughter, Rachel's sister. So he's now married to Leah, and he's like, but Rachel, I love Rachel, that's who I wanted to marry. And the father says, okay, work for me another 7 years and you can have Rachel. So ultimately he marries both sisters. So here's Jacob, here's Leah. Now Leah, they're married, they start having kids. And she has Reuben and Simeon, Levi, Judah. She starts having babies. He marries Rachel, and Rachel can't have any children. Hasn't had any children yet. And that culturally at the time is very difficult. It's emotionally difficult still. Culturally back then, it held huge significance. Just like when Abraham and Sarah couldn't have a baby. There's like some real shame that went along with it. Some real cultural, societal shame that went along with it. So Rachel is she's not getting pregnant, she's not having a baby. So she has a handmaiden. Well, it's like a concubine. In our context, concubine sounds really bad. Back then, it was a legal wife, or it could be a legal wife, but basically the wife owned the concubine and she could give her concubine to her husband, and whatever children that the concubine had belonged to the wife. So Rachel had Zilpah, was her handmaiden, who became Jacob's concubine. Zilpah has children, and they are legally Rachel's children. But again, Rachel hasn't had her own children yet. So if you look here, Leah's got children, and Rachel doesn't have any at this point, so Zilpah comes into the picture. Well, Leah sees now that Rachel's having children through her handmaiden, so she gives Jacob her handmaiden. So Jacob has 4 wives. 2 prominent wives, and these wives are like of a lesser stature. Legally his wife, but they're of a lesser social class. And so these are like all the children that are coming into it. Rachel does get pregnant. She has Joseph. And then she gets pregnant with Benjamin and sadly dies in labor with Benjamin. It's like the saddest love story. It's the worst love story. I don't get it. Breaks my heart. So here we've got all these children born, and there's even a daughter in here that Leah had. There's some crazy stories about, this is all like crazy stuff from the Old Testament. A lot of this is about this family. So anyhow, this is the great big family of Jacob. So here's his children right here. These are not, this is grandchildren. So these are his children right here. These are his wives. Look into that. It's really interesting. So these are his children. And Jacob is another thing we need to talk about. So Jacob, as he gets older, or in families in this time, there's a birthright. And the birthright is super important to understand, because then we can, and we still see the birthright happening when you look at the royal family in Britain. You know, it's the heir and the spare. There is the heir, and it's the firstborn son. It's not the first, like you could have 10 daughters and one son, and that son is the heir. It's not till recently. So if you know anything about the royal family in the UK, you've had the Queen, and then you've got Prince Charles, and then you've got the grandsons like William and Harry. William has kids, so William's the heir, he's the first son born, and then he had a son, and then he had a daughter, and they had another son. They just recently changed the laws that the daughter, William's daughter, could actually be the monarch. It wouldn't just pass from son to the next son to the next son. So this kind of stuff has been around from the beginning of time. It's under the patriarchal order, and it's still in effect. A lot of Middle Eastern cultures still do this hardcore. Again, you could have 10 daughters, you have one son, he's the boss. So the birthright, so let's take my family, for example. We have 4 sons and a daughter. So if, under the way the birthright worked in the Old Testament times, so we have 5 children, 4 sons. So the way that our inheritance or our stuff would be divided when Brian died, we have 4 sons, it would be divided into 5. Mind you, there's still me and there's still our daughter, but we wouldn't have counted in this, the way this is divided. We've got these 4 boys, everything would have been divided into 5 parts. And our younger sons would get their portion, and they could go off and do whatever they want. They could be professional skydivers, they could build canoes for a living, they could go do whatever they wanted to do. They'd go off and do their thing. Our oldest son, Ethan, would get the double portion, and his job would be the leader of the family. He wouldn't go off and do anything else. He would stay and be, you're locked out.
Do you want me to bring you a salad?
No, thank you. He would get the double portion. He'd be responsible for carrying on his father's work. So that's how that worked. You got the double portion. And I might have to stop this video and seriously read through it again to better explain this to you. But that's what happened with Jacob's family. So the birthright son, the first son born, is Reuben. Reuben is the birthright son. But Reuben, again, this is weird, and some of it's very uncomfortable. He actually had a physical romantic relationship with Bilhah, his dad's concubine, wife from a lower class. And so he lost the birthright through disobedience, through wickedness. He lost the birthright. So the birthright, mind you, Leah has all these sons, but the birthright goes to the next firstborn son, which is Joseph. So he's the Joseph in the coat of many colors, Technicolor Dreamcoat, goes to Joseph. He is now the birthright son. He's younger than all these other siblings, but he's the birthright son because Reuben lost the birthright. And so if you remember in that story, Joseph gets a coat like of many colors, and it's sometimes portrayed that he was the favorite son, and that's why he got this coat. It really because he was the birthright son. It was representative of his station now as the birthright son. And he was given a double portion, and the other brothers could go do what they wanted, but Joseph was not going to be responsible for the family's work. If you want to relate that to us, we are a birthright people because we've made covenants, and through the blessings of the Abrahamic covenant, we get to partake in the birthright, meaning we got an extra portion, and we are responsible for carrying out our Father's work. What's our Father's work? It is the bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. It's to share the gospel. It's to get people to understand the covenants that are available to them and teach them that and show them how to access it in their own lives. That's what we get. We get the double portion, and that's what we're supposed to do with it. So if you don't feel like you have a double portion, I want you to take some time. You can pause this video even. Take some time and think about philosophers and artists and people from the beginning of whatever, Plato, Aristotle. You go back all the way to what the songs are written about nowadays. Like, who am I? What am I here for? Love, all this stuff that people ponder about, and the loss of family members and how does that work and all that kind of stuff. Our primary children in our church can answer the questions: who we are, where we came from, where we're going. And you look out in the world, and that answer isn't readily available to people. But that's our extra portion, is that we have this knowledge. And you think back to, you've got the prodigal son. We have stories of people who had an inheritance and they squandered it. But there's also an opportunity to have an inheritance and to magnify it and serve, complete our Father's business with our birthright. That's what we're here to do. That's what the Abrahamic covenant promises us. And our patriarchal blessing goes into more detail. Real quick on this family. So Joseph is the birthright son. And Joseph, so here are the tribes. You've got Reuben, or the tribes. These are the sons. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. So Levites, they worked in the temples. They were the ones who worked in the temples. Dan, Naphtali, I have to take my glasses off. Gad, Asher, Joseph, and Benjamin. Joseph was the birthright son. He had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. You may recognize those names. And Manasseh was older. Ephraim was younger. So now, even within this birthright, Manasseh would have been the one, right? But when Jacob, Israel, goes to basically give the blessing unto the boys, he goes to put his hands on Manasseh, and he moves it over to Ephraim. I have to study this better. Moves it over to Ephraim, and someone moves it back, and he moves it back to Ephraim, and he makes Ephraim the birthright son. So Ephraim's role as now the birthright son, that double portion, is again to carry out the gospel to everyone, to share the gospel with everyone, and the promise is through the missionary work of his seed, all the families on the earth would be blessed, even with the blessings of the gospel, which are the blessings of salvation, even of life eternal. And so if you know anything about patriarchal blessings, you start to hear these names of these tribes. Now we call them the tribes of Israel, which are the sons of Israel, and the descendants are the people from the tribes. There's a bunch more in the book that we might go over later. This is already almost 20 minutes long, so I don't want to bore you to death. Read your book. But I want you guys to understand, Abraham made a covenant with God. There were some amazing promises that the Lord said would come through Abraham and his descendants, and we are part of that. So tomorrow we're gonna talk about, where's my list of what we're gonna talk about? What the gathering of Israel is, what that means. Because so now there's all these, right? We have all these tribes, and they lived as tribes in what we now call Israel, in that region of the world. And they lived as tribes in different things, and then wars and different things came and scattered them everywhere. And now they're supposed to be gathered back. That's part of the prophecy of how things are supposed to work here. And they have to be gathered back, but they've been scattered and taken off into slavery, and they've been driven out of their homelands, and they're supposed to be gathered. And that's what missionary work is. We are gathering these people out. We're gathering our brothers and sisters, reminding them who they are. And the people who want to be baptized and partake of this are either literally or figuratively partaking in the Abrahamic covenant. They're either like literal descendants, or they're being adopted into it by their adherence to the gospel standards, the laws and ordinances. So that's what the gathering of Israel is now, is to go out and get everybody, let them know who they are. So tomorrow we're going to talk about what that is, how that happens. And if you guys have any questions, text me, and we can cover it over the next couple days of Girls Camp. I love you. I miss you. I hope you can just get a little bit of like seeds planted in your mind, because this stuff is deep and wild and wonderful. It's really, really cool. And I hope that, let me just read this. This is straight out of Genesis 17. This is, mind you, he's 99 years old. And the Lord says, I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee and their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. I will give unto thee and thy seed after thee the land therein thou art a stranger, and I will be their God. And God said, so then he talks about Sarah. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and I will give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she will be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. And you can only imagine how wild that must have sounded. And the Lord has kept his promise. They had a son, Isaac, and then they had a grandson, Jacob, who had many children. And that bloodline is carried on today through billions of people. And we all have the opportunity to partake in that promise, that Abrahamic covenant promise. We are all given the opportunity to be heirs to that birthright. And I'm fascinated by reading this. I feel a connection to the Old Testament and to my role in in this stage of humanity to participate in this. And I hope that you guys too. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow.
Hi, sisters! I mean young women. Okay. So I'm gonna teach you how to make friendship bracelets. I don't know if you didn't make them last time or forgot, but we will walk you through step by step on how to make these. So first you wanna take all of your thread and open them up and then cut a wanted length. And do that to all of them and make sure they're all the same length.
Just make sure they're really long.
Because you don't want them to be too short and then they won't fit on your wrist and then you won't be able to like tie a knot in them. So longer is best. Talk again. Okay, so then after you have lined all of your threads up in a wanted length, you are going to fold it.
Like kind of. Oh wait, don't. No, we're not doing it in half. So you're gonna put it around your finger, and then you're gonna have it like long, and then you're gonna make a bunny loop. You're gonna go through and bunny loop like that, and then just kind of pull and loop like that.
So tie it. Oh
So it
gosh,
should look
wait.
like this.
I did not do that. I just tied a knot.
A knot will work too, but like if you have like a clip thing, that will work for like
For the tape?
a safety pin. Or yeah, tape would work too. So then you're gonna go like this.
Yeah, whatever you're using, she's using a clip. I'm using a piece of tape. A clip would probably be better, but we only had one clip.
Oh shoot, and then you're gonna put this behind there. Okay, now you're gonna separate your pieces. Shoot, I did this too long for me. Speed this up.
Yeah. This is taking long.
You're almost done with this. Okay, after they're somewhat. Okay.
Yeah, after they're somewhat separated,
You're gonna get the first color you want to start. So mine is pink. You will grab the next color you want to use. Are you ready? You're gonna pull tight on the one. You're gonna make a 4 with your thumb, and you're gonna go through. And you're gonna pull, and you're gonna do this 4 times on this color. Or 3, doesn't matter.
How many knots you make, like how many times you go through, determines like the thickness. So if you just want to do like 2, then it's going to be thin, but anywhere like above 3 is probably going to be the best if you want it to be more noticeable and thick.
And then you will move on to the next color, and then you'll do it the same amount of times you did with the last color.
And again, just doing a 4 and then crossing underneath and then pulling through. And then just keep going on until you have done the 4 technique through all of the strings.
And then speed this up.
Yeah.
Sounds like I'm
Sorry, that was loud.
It's okay.
Okay, are you done? We're almost done with all the
I
colors.
just need to do this one, and then I'll do that one.
Okay.
Oh, are you done?
Mm-hmm. Just the first layer.
Okay. And whoa, what did you do?
Don't know.
What we're doing is completely different.
Really?
Yeah, 'cause I'm grabbing each individual string.
I am too.
Oh, it just looks different. Wait, does yours like? And then after that, you will grab the next color you want, and you will do the same thing. Ta-da!
And then you just keep going back and forth, going through the cycle of tying it in the knot until you reach your length that you want to do.
Have fun. Goodbye.
End it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay guys, so this is how far we have got, and yes. So when you're gonna do at the end is, I think, don't you
Just tie a knot.
just
like,
tie a
with
knot and then cut any extra and then just wrap it around your wrist. Make sure there's like enough like extra part like right here and like down below where you would cut it, because that's how you're gonna tie it on your wrist, and then that's how you do it. So peace out. Hopefully you
Bye, my
get
dear.
it.
Bye, sisters.